Hi, I'm Andrea Morrison and I'm a personal performance coach, and I run the Flourishing Business Community, which is an online community for professionals, business owners, freelancers, creatives and coaches who want to tap into that well of infinite potential that we all have to create for themselves unrivaled levels of personal performance. Often business owners and professionals and coaches and creators, all of the people that I work with, often are experiencing not getting the results that they expect despite high levels of effort. They have too much to do and not enough time. They have a lack of focus. They jump from task to task. They might have great ideas, those kind of flashes of inspiration that we all have, but then they really struggle to put them into practice, and get them off the ground. They often hold themselves back through fear or insecurity or worry. Perhaps they have an imposter syndrome, or they worry about what other people think. They have a negative mindset. That might include, again, sort of worry or fear about the future or how things might turn out, or perhaps a fear of failure. They might also struggle with decision making, not knowing what to do, whether it's the right decision for them, or, what's going to happen if they make a particular decision. They have a fear of making the wrong decision. Now, you might be thinking, well, what do I know about that? Here I am with a successful business. So what do I know about that particular journey? Well, I've been running a business on my own for now 8 years, but it's not always been the same business. So prior to that, I was a successful barrister. And then I moved into self-employment, and you can read about my story on my website, but essentially I suffered severe burnout and had to have a very drastic career change. Now, I've experienced almost every single thing that my clients have experienced. I've certainly experienced all of those issues that I've just outlined. But also, I felt at times overwhelmed. I've had stress at home that has impacted my career in business. I've struggled with a negative frame of mind and mindset, including the sort of worry and fear and feeling like I wasn't good enough. I've struggled with focus, managing my time. I've not had a lack of balance. I've had a lack of balance in my life. I've suffered with low self-esteem, lack of confidence, and lack of self-belief. And I knew I wasn't reaching my potential. I just knew I wasn't. I knew all of that was getting in my way. And it wasn't really until I was introduced to the understanding that I want to share with you now that it was like kind of just like wiping that whole slate completely clean. And that's why I'm really passionate about sharing it with people like you in the position that you are, because I know firsthand the impact that it can have, not only just on your life, but on your business, as your business as well. I meant to say that the other way around. So not only your business, but also your life. It transcends through everything. And that's why I often refer it as the crucial piece of the personal performance jigsaw, because it really is so crucial. And when we understand more about, the mechanics of how our minds work, how our experience is made up, we can understand how we can connect more to that infinite well of potential that we all have. And I know you probably don't feel like you have a well of infinite potential, but you do, and we all do. And when we connect with that, that's when we can create unrivaled levels of personal performance, ones that are beyond our imagination. We become more inspired, we become more energized, empowered, we're engaged, and we have a deeper connection with the people that we talk to, with the clients that we work with. We have that fresh new thinking, that those thoughts that often pop in your head when you're in the shower, or, you know, maybe you're jet hosing a patio or whatever you're doing, you know, when your mind is completely free, you have more of them, as well as getting a greater sense of well-being, you know, this greater sense of innate confidence and resilience. And we all have that. Now, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to experience that? Because I knew that I did, because I thought I would never experience that at all. And I think that's the kind of key to it sometimes, is that I thought that I was set in a particular way. That was me, that was my personality. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from this recording, is that it's not. You know, the gloves are off. We can create whatever it is that we want to create. You know, when I started in business, or even in my career, I didn't even really think about mindset. You know, it wasn't something that kind of featured in my contemplation as something that I needed to look at, that I needed to spend time or invest in. You know, I didn't think it affected my business particularly. Well, not to the extent that it did. I mean, I thought, well, perhaps I might need a little bit of motivation or a kick up the backside sometimes, but I didn't realize how crucial it actually was. And I thought that my business issues were caused by external factors, you know, like I needed a new marketing plan, or I needed better goals, or I needed more accountability, or I needed a community around me, or I needed more training or more better equipment. You know, I think the amount of times I blame my laptop for my lack of business success, you know, or I needed a different place to work, or I needed to work with people, or I needed to work on my own more. You know, the list was endless, you know, because whatever happened, I could always find an external thing that I could say, oh, well, that's the problem. And if I fix that, I shall feel better. You know, I was always looking outside of me for that solution. And gosh, when I think now about the amount of money that I must have invested on trying to fix it by fixing something on the outside, I just don't even want to, I don't want to go there. I don't want to add it up. So, but often what would happen, and I think this is why I kind of got seduced into thinking that it was something on the outside, is that it would have an impact for a short amount of time. Yeah. So I think we've all experienced that. So it makes a bit of a difference, you know, and then we seem to just fall back into our ways again. You know, all these old patterns kind of just reappear. You know, there's no kind of longevity about it. There's no, you know, you just end up going around in circles, don't you? Or I wouldn't kind of implement the thing. I'd get really excited about something, you know, like I'd say, oh, I've got this great new marketing plan, or I put these goals in place and it's going to be amazing. And then I just wouldn't do anything about them, you know, or I'd do it a little bit, but it would be like just dipping my toe in. I wouldn't really go 100% wholeheartedly into it, you know, and that was partly through fear, you know, lack of confidence, or, you know, maybe doubt, like self-doubt. You know, I'd worry that, you know, I couldn't really do it, or it wouldn't work. You know, I talk myself out of it and say, well, I don't think that would work now. I've had second thoughts about it. And, you know, or I'd procrastinate. So like deadlines would pass, or, you know, the moment would pass, you know, and I think, oh, wow, maybe next time, you know, that sort of thing, you know. Or I'd go simply back to how I was feeling before. So I'd be feeling kind of overwhelmed, or I'd have too much to do and I didn't have enough time to do it, or I'd lack focus. So I'd kind of start one thing and then I'd be distracted and I'd go off and do something else, or then I'd go and do something else, or I'd go and do something. So I never really achieved anything, you know, nothing was ever really completed, or I wouldn't be able to make decisions, you know, should I contact that person, or should I contact, or should I do this, or should I do that, or what venue should I, you know, I would just, you know, be unable sometimes to make those even quite small decisions, you know. So all of that would then compound and make me feel quite overwhelmed in running my business. And the result of that would be that I would feel really quite disheartened. You know, I'd often feel like I'd made the wrong decision, or maybe that I wasn't the right person to be in business, that I wasn't really an entrepreneur, that I couldn't really pull this off, that I was deluding myself, and maybe I should just go and get a proper job, as, you know, often entrepreneurs, you know, refer to it. And I remember really distinctly at quite a low point saying to my then coach, who was my first coach, who introduced me to this understanding, an amazing guy who I have an awful lot of time and respect for. And I remember saying to him, you know, I've got all my ducks. I have all my ducks, but they are completely uncontrollable. I cannot get them in a row. Now, I kind of thought that was quite funny at the time, but actually I was being really serious, because I just felt that it was out of my control, that I just couldn't do it, you know? And what this understanding has given to me, what it's really done for me, is that it underpins everything that I do now. Okay, it's like it's just wiped that slate completely clean, which is why I really love sharing it, because it has made such a massive difference to my business, to the way that I do business. Now, I'm not going to say to you, I'm not even going to suggest to you that this is going to transform you overnight, that you're going to listen to this recording and just go, boom, that's it, my head has exploded, I'm now a completely different person. You know, okay, so sometimes I can have a coaching session, I can have that first coaching session with somebody, and they do get a boom moment. You know, that has happened. It didn't happen to me. And that's why I always share that with people, because I kind of thought, oh, perhaps this isn't for me. Perhaps it doesn't work with me. Perhaps I'm the exception to the rule. Perhaps I'm the strange one, you know, or whatever. It's strange, ridiculous thinking I was doing at the time. And I want to say to you that both are equally as normal, okay? Because for me, it was like quite a slow realization, you know? For me, it initially, if I'm really honest, all it really did was stir my curiosity. Initially, I kind of thought, well, that's quite nice. You know, that must be a really nice way of being, a really nice way of looking at things. But I didn't really see it for myself straight away. But I was curious enough to want to learn more about it. I wanted to see more about it, because this understanding isn't an intellectual thing. You know, it's not a process, it's not a technique. And I think that's often where people get caught up, is that they think, well, I've learned it now and it's not working for me. And that's kind of where I was, if I'm honest. I kind of knew it, but I hadn't really seen it. And the longer I stayed in the conversation, the more that I saw for myself, the greater impact it had for me. But what I saw in those early days, that's what I want to share with you now, is what I saw in those very early days, because you might just see that now, okay? And I saw that we had this thing called thought. And it was my thought that was responsible for creating my experience. You know, we have these thoughts and they kind of like just pop into your head, don't they? You know, we don't really have any control over what pops into our head. And again, I think that's where we get caught up, because we do try to control it. And at the end of the day, we don't have any control. They simply just pop into our head. And if we leave them alone, they float right out again. And that's really interesting as well, because they kind of float in, and if we leave them, they just walk on by. They float out of our heads, you know. Now, what really blew me away is I got to quite an old age by that time, and I thought everything that I thought was true. I thought everything that I thought was true, especially the negative stuff. So if I really thought something negative or something bad was going to happen, or about my capabilities, or about myself, all of those thoughts, they were completely true. All of them were completely true. And what I saw was that when I began to understand it more, when I began to see more of it, I saw that it was more like a narrator, like I had this almost like a person in my head just kind of explaining what was going on in my life, and describing things for me and telling things to me, so that I could experience it. And what I didn't realize is that I could influence the narrator. And that was a bit of a deal breaker for me. And that the narrator wasn't truth. She didn't always speak the truth, but it was like she had a script. It was like sometimes she was just reading from a script, like, bits of things that people had said to me in the past, or bits of past experience, or maybe a worry that I would have about the future that she would just keep reading over and over again. And in that ways, it was a bit like a script that she was sharing with me. But it was a script that I was constantly adding to, or changing, or distorting in some way, but it was there. Now, I want you to kind of park that for a moment and just sit with that just for a little bit. And I want you to kind of rewind right back until you were about 18 months old. I love that age. It's one of my favorite ages. Or maybe, you can't remember, and I couldn't remember either. And maybe an 18-month-old. And just think about what they're like at that age, like how full of life they are, and how confident they are, and how super resilient they are, and how, they're just into everything, aren't they? Nothing phases them. Even that whole process of learning to walk it's just amazing, because it's such an enormous task for them. It's an impossible thing for them to do, but they're not off. They're not put off at any point. Even the adults laugh at them and stuff. It doesn't worry them. They don't think, oh, I'm too old for that walking thing, or I'm not going to do that because everybody laughed at me, or I've tried it today, I'm not going to try it again tomorrow. They don't do that today. They just kind of get up and go for it, until they achieve it. Now, what I couldn't see at the beginning, or what I really lost sight of, so much so is that I didn't think it existed for such a long time, was that is us at our core. That doesn't go away. It isn't replaced. It isn't lost. It isn't educated out of us, or that is still there, just waiting for us to access. And I couldn't see that. I thought for most of my adult life I was broken in some way, that I'd had too many experiences that were too difficult, and that they'd left their mark in some way, that there was a stain or a crack, or and even when I came to this understanding, I couldn't see it. And I just thought I was the exception. I thought, well, that's nice for everybody else, and I'm really glad that they feel really confident and resilient, but I don't see that. And it took me a while of staying in the conversation and seeing more and more of how our experience is made up, that then I had that realization that, oh my goodness, that's me too. And I could see when I had been innately confident and innately resilient and innately motivated, and then I didn't need all these other kind of props, like, oh, I need to go for a walk and then I'm this, or I didn't need any of that. I could just access it when I needed to. And that for me was a really big game changer, because it was like everything that I'd known had turned 180 degrees around the other way, And what I saw for myself, what I really, really saw for myself at that stage, when I really saw this nature of thought, and I saw what I innately really was that, this is an amazing tool that we have. This thing called thought is just an incredible tool. And it enables us to experience whatever it is that we want to experience. You know, it's a tool that enables us to create our experience. And that includes the experience of running our business. So all those times I was experiencing a lack of confidence in my business, a lack of resilience in my business, when I was feeling overwhelmed, when I felt I didn't have enough time, when I felt I had a lack of focus, when I felt like I was an imposter, that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't have enough qualifications, that I was just filled with doubt that I was even doing the right thing, they were all created with my thinking. It's all created by my thought. And the impact of this on my business, it impacted it by meaning, I'm just flabbergasted as I say this, because it was such a massive impact. It impacted the consistency I had in my business. So how consistent I was. I wasn't confident, and I felt overwhelmed, and I didn't feel like I had enough time or any of that stuff. I didn't do anything. I did less. I was less productive. It affected how I impacted and how I connected and interacted with my clients. When I was talking to somebody, if my head was flooded with lots of feelings of like I was an imposter, that I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't saying the right thing, I was up in my head. I wasn't in the room with my client, and they could pick up on that. That impacted whether they worked with me, whether they continued to work with me, whether they recommended me. You see where I'm going with this? That impacted the results that I was getting. It then impacted the income I was earning. Because if I wasn't being consistent and I wasn't getting the clients or retaining the clients, that kind of had an impact on the pounds and pence that I was bringing in. It affected how I marketed my business. It didn't matter what marketing plan I had. If my head wasn't in the right place, I wouldn't implement it, or I wouldn't implement it in the way that I'd agreed I would implement it, or that I needed to implement it. It just wouldn't happen. And of course, it affected how, or even whether, I achieved my goals. Because half the time I talked myself out of it, or all the little micro steps that I needed, depending on the experience I was having on that day, would depend on the action I would take, or how efficient I was, or how productive I was. So of course, it's almost like yeah, that makes sense. Of course it's going to impact. But when you add up the financial implication of that, well, I wouldn't do it. Because I think you'd just be horrified at what the financial impact your mindset has on your business. So with all of that was all because of thought. It was all created by thought. Thought was responsible for it, So really it didn't matter what I did on the outside, what steps I took on the outside, what changes I made on the outside. Because until I tackled this, until I understood this, until I understood the mechanics of how my mind was creating my experience, it would always continue to have an impact on my business. Nothing was ever going to change. And that's why I say it is the essential key. It's the essential piece, because without it, you're never going to achieve the levels of performance that you want to achieve in your business, because it is so crucial, so fundamental, and we rarely see it. We rarely see it. But of course, that wasn't the end of the story, because it never is. Because there's more at play. There's more than play. They're just saying, oh yeah, that's just a thought, And I really needed to see that for myself before I believed that there was more at play. You know, because what I began to see, the longer I stayed in the conversation, the more the conversations that I had about this, the more coaching that I had about this, and the more then I understood that when my thought came into my head, it was completely neutral. It didn't matter whether it was a scared thought or a positive thought or a happy thought or a fearful thought. It was all the same. It was all exactly the same in nature. It was completely neutral. But I then could change it. I then was like the artist, if you like. I was the one who changed it, depending on my state of mind. So if I was in a low state, for example, okay, my thoughts would, if I had like a fearful thought or an insecure thought, it would sound really urgent. They would sound authoritative. They would sound dependable. They would sound believable. You know, scary even, you know, but that I would have to take notice of them, that the information that they were giving me was important, and I had to act on that information, that it was true, that I had to listen to it. But if I was in a better state of mind, in a good or higher state of mind, I could see that I didn't quite have to take them quite so seriously. I could almost see that it was just, you know, just a thought, that, you know, that was, I could see their true nature, if you like, that I didn't have to take notice of it. And that if I didn't give it energy or I didn't breathe life into it, it would just simply pass and I would go back to being okay. I could see that if I was in a higher state of mind. Whereas if I was in a lower state of mind, I couldn't see that. I couldn't see that. I'd just get kind of sucked in. So a really kind of basic example for this, just to give you a flavor of what I'm talking about, is, you know, when you're stuck at traffic lights and they're red, and you know you're running late and you need to be somewhere. And when we're in a lower state of mind, it's so easy to get really stressed, isn't it? And I'm really frustrated because you're red lights always catch me, da, 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 da. And you end up with this really kind of angry, frustrated narrative in your head, and it's, you know, it makes you feel really stressed, and you might get that kind of tense feeling with it, and all of that, and that's what happens when we're in a lower state of mind. But when we're in a higher state of mind, it might not even occur to us to feel like that. You know, we might kind of just sit back and just put the radio on. We might look out the window for a bit, you know, and think, oh, this is such a lovely day. It's nice to have a bit of a pause. And if that frustrated thought pops in your head, like, oh, this is frustrating, we kind of just go, no, it's fine, you know, and we kind of can engage with other thoughts that are there that create a completely different experience. And that's what's really interesting about how our state of mind really interacts with thought, and how it really kind of brings it to life, how it creates a different experience for us, you know. Now, when I didn't understand the mechanics of all of this, it really felt to me like I was on some kind of emotional business roller coaster, you know, and that it was filled with highs and lows. But when I began to really understand it, and what I'm saying is not on an intellectual level, but really understand it. So when I could really see it, it appeared more to me to be like I was sat in one of those virtual reality booths, you know, that you get like at a fair, and you go in and it's like the biggest roller coaster in the world, and you're sitting on the chair and the chair's kind of moving, and all of that, you know, and sometimes my mind would be tricked, you know, and I'd get really sucked in, like you do in those moments on those like virtual reality rides, you know, and I'd really feel like I was on that roller coaster, you know, and I felt all those same sensations, and I was like really in it. Where at other times when I was in a higher state of mind, I could kind of spot it a lot easier. And I could just see that this was just an illusion that my mind was creating. And I didn't have to get sucked into it if I didn't want to be sucked into it. You know, it was just an illusion that was being created in my mind. And the longer that I stayed in the conversation, the more I saw of the virtual reality booth, if you like, and the less I felt that I was on the roller coaster and that was really real, you know. And so the more I saw that it was an illusion, you know, and so that meant really I was making a lot better decisions, because instead of making decisions based on this illusion, if you like, you know, based on, you know, crazy and, you know, very busy thinking, you know, often knee-jerk or, you know, sort of off the cuff kind of, those kinds of decisions, you know, or pulling back or bottling out or whatever it was that I was doing, I found that kind of my decisions were based on a very clear mind, you know, on a state of mind where I could really listen to my gut feeling, you know, that wisdom that we all have. And well, you know, I'm sure you've had a gut feeling about things in the past, and I'm wondering, and I'm curious as to what's happened when you haven't followed that, because your head has talked you out of it. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. You see, because when my mind was clear, I was more able to navigate my business from that place of that wisdom, of that gut feeling, of that sense of knowing that we all had. And so I made better decisions that were made on a much firmer foundation. And not only that, you know, I could access this whole feeling of flow, you know, when you just feel in flow, and you know, ideas are coming to you, inspiration's coming to you, you know, it all just feels right, it feels easy. And I could access that more often and just so much easier. You know, I had more inspired ideas. I was more creative. I was just more relaxed. I was, but I am, you know, happier in my business, you know, and I just enjoy it so much more, you know, and I just feel so much more connected to that unlimited well that we all have of potential and inspired thinking, of fresh new thought, all of that. Whereas before, I would have convinced you that I didn't have that at all. And that's the difference that it makes. You know, I know now that I am confidence. You know, I am made up of confidence. I am made up of motivation. I am made up of resilience, you know, and this underpins everything that I do. Everything that I do. And the impact that has had on my business, you know, it's impacted my business in ways that I couldn't have imagined. I couldn't have foreseen. I really couldn't have. And this is what I really want for you. I'd love to have the opportunity to share even more of this with you, to stay in the conversation with you. So if this is something that really interests you, or have sparked a curiosity in you, or maybe you might have heard something in this recording, then I'd love for you to join my free community, which is the Flourishing Business Community. And it's a Facebook community, and it's completely free for you to join. And on there, you can look out for my events. You can look out for I do lots of free events, like free webinars and things like that you can access easily. And most importantly, it enables you to stay in the conversation with me. And I'd love to know what you've thought of this recording as well. So do let me know either by email or on my Facebook page, or of course on the Flourishing Business Community too. Okay, thank you for listening. Bye-bye.